Welcome back to the channel, guys. Let's get straight into today's story. Parliament is supposed to be more than theatre. It is meant to be the central arena of British democracy, a place where arguments are tested, ministers are challenged and power is held to account in public. Its strength does not come from personalities, but from procedure, convention and respect for the institution itself. And that is exactly why the conduct of those who lead our political parties matters. Because when senior figures treat Parliament as a backdrop rather than a forum, they weaken something far more important than their opponents. They weaken the House of Commons itself. This is where serious questions arise about Keir Starmer. Starmer presents himself as a former prosecutor, a defender of the rule of law and a guardian of democratic norms. But when you look closely at how he engages with Parliament in practice, a different pattern begins to emerge, one that raises concerns about his respect for procedure, accountability and parliamentary tradition. Now, let's start with the basics. Parliamentary democracy relies on engagement with the House. Attendance matters, statements matter, answering questions matters. Yet time and time again, Labour under Starmer has shown a preference for conducting politics outside Parliament rather than within it. Major policy positions are frequently announced in press interviews rather than at the dispatch box. Clarifications appear on social media before they are offered to MPs. And key positions are often left deliberately vague in Parliament, only to be sharpened later for external audiences. This may be a good media strategy, but is a poor parliamentary practice. The House of Commons exists so that policies can be tested in real time, under scrutiny by elected representatives. When leaders bypass that process, they shift accountability away from Parliament and towards controlled messaging environments where challenges are limited and consequences are minimal. Then there is Starmer's approach to question and debate. Prime Minister's questions are not meant to be a performance for clips, but a constitutional mechanism for scrutiny. Yet Starmer's interventions often prioritise soundbites over substance, repetition over probing, and political positioning over extracting information. This isn't illegal, but it reflects a view of Parliament as a stage, not at all. Even more concerning is Labour's attitude to parliamentary scrutiny when it becomes inconvenient. Committees, procedural delays and invasive answers are tolerated, even encouraged, when they serve political ends. The principle of transparency is loudly invoked against opponents, but quietly sidelined when it applies internally. This selective respect for parliamentary norms matters, because conventions only work when all sides treat them seriously. There have also been repeated moments where the Speaker has been forced to intervene, not because rules were unclear, but because behaviour fell short of expected standards. Interventions over language, conduct and procedural discipline are not trivial matters. They are warnings that the tone and integrity of the House are being eroded. Parliament does not function on goodwill alone, it functions on restraint. Starmer often frames his approach as forensic and professional, but professionalism in Parliament is not just about being calm, it is about respecting process even when it is inconvenient. It is about recognising that scrutiny cuts both ways. And it is about accepting that parliamentary democracy is messy by design. The deeper issue here is cultural. Starmer's political instincts are managerial, not parliamentary. As a former director of public prosecutions, his mindset is rooted in procedure without debate, authority without challenge, and decisions made behind closed doors. This may work in a legal institution, but it does not translate cleanly to a representative democracy. Parliament is not a courtroom. MPs are not jurors to be directed, and the public is not a passive audience to be managed. When political leaders treat Parliament as an obstacle to be navigated rather than a foundation to be defended, they shift power away from elected representatives and towards party machines, advisors and media handlers. That shift should worry anyone who cares about democratic accountability, regardless of party. The irony is that Starmer frequently accuses others of undermining democratic norms. He positions himself as the adult in the room, the restorer of standards, the defender of institutions. But respect for institutions is not demonstrated through rhetoric, it is demonstrated through behaviour. And behaviour is where the cracks show. Democracy is not protected by saying the right things. It is protected by showing up, answering questions, respecting procedure and accepting scrutiny even when it is uncomfortable. Parliament survives not because it is popular, but because it is treated seriously by those who hold power within it. If that seriousness erodes, so does public trust. This is not about tradition for tradition's sake. Parliamentary conventions exist to limit power, slow decisions and force accountability into the open. When leaders find ways around them, However cleverly, they weaken the very checks they claim to support. So the concern is not that Keir Starmer is rude or abrasive or dramatic. It is that his approach reflects a broader tendency in modern politics to see Parliament as a communications platform rather than the engine of democracy itself. If that mindset becomes normalised, the damage will not be partisan, it will be institutional. Because once Parliament is reduced to a prop, democracy becomes something managed from the outside, not lived on the floor of the House. And that is a warning worth taking seriously. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want more on this political commentary and don't want to miss what's really happening behind the headlines, hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments below.